Thank you. So last year, Casual Connect was the first time we really sat down and shared a lot of user acquisition insights from top grossing developers straight to new developers. So happy to be back this year, share updated insights that we've been tracking, we've shared with our partners over the last 2 years. So if you were here before, hearing Walter Walter from Scopely talk about user acquisition and how Scopely helps out. AdColony is a video ad network. Recently, we announced an acquisition with Opera, but we're the leader in HD instant play mobile video, which today has become a really popular user acquisition channel across mobile. So just a quick note, we'll make these slides available. Dean Takahashi of VentureBeat published some of them this morning. So feel free, we've got lots of data. I want to get through some slides and hopefully save time for some questions. So at AdColony, we run a survey every 6 months. We've been doing it for the past 2 years of top grossing developers. So we have the privilege of working with about 75–80% of the top grossing developers every single day. And quick question, any top grossing developers in here? Raise your hand. Don't want to raise your hand because then everyone will seek you out. Indie developers, small developers, new developers? Awesome. So you're here to steal all the secrets. But in terms of trends, we field this survey over about 3 weeks. It's close to 100 questions that we ask user acquisition buyers who are buying sometimes more sophisticated than big brands, big media agencies. Lots programmatic, lots APIs, lots of tracking, lots of things, just as Walter from Scopely said, things you have to do at scale. And remarkably, we get almost a 50% completion rate of this survey, almost 100 questions. So let's dive right in. So quick sample of who are some of the participants whose answers will be in the survey that we'll make available. So everyone from Machine Zone to Supercell to Pocket Gems, Disney, Electronic Arts, just to name a few, as well as a lot of non-gaming guys. I think we're here at a gaming convention, but there are a lot of non-gaming apps that's still in the top grossing charts, although on a given day, we're lucky working in games, there's about 75–80% that are games. So what kind of questions do we ask in this survey? So we ask all sorts of things from usage. What are the most popular user acquisition channels you use today, right now? How effective are those channels at achieving your goals? Knowing that every developer has different goals, different apps, and different life cycles of their apps, and those goals may evolve over time. What are the most important KPIs to evaluate success? So when you're testing a new channel, what do you look for? What are some of those metrics? What pricing models do you use? And then we ask a lot of behavioral questions and attitudinal questions about what are you doing this year that you didn't do last year? And even further, what are you doing in next year? What do you expect to do more for? We ask them to kind of predict the future, and we'll dive into that a little bit. So here's the main chart where we start. This is usage of user acquisition channels and formats, so different types of ad units, different channels today of top grossing developers. So video ads for the second year running have been used by 100% of survey respondents. Very closely, we've seen Facebook and social used north of 90%. Interstitials, banners, again, really popular. Been in the market in mobile marketing, been a great tool for developers to drive user acquisition for quite a while. As we move down the charts, we start to see all sorts of other things that you may or may not have heard of or worked with. Offer walls, cross promotion, television. So we'll get into more formal marketing channels that brand marketers. When I was at Activision, these are the channels you market your app through. You don't have on-device marketing channels. So we're starting to see some pickup of guys who are, I've never heard anyone talk of print, putting print ads and buying print to distribute their mobile app. But we're starting to see almost a quarter of the top grossing guys saying they have at least experimented or have used television to distribute their app. So let's look at all those usage trends over time. So here's the last 3 times we've run this survey over the past 6 months. So Video, again, still used at 100%. Facebook, here you can see really the ramp up of how Facebook has come in the last 18 months from starting at about 2/3 when we first added that question to the survey to now almost 100%. Interstitials, still highly used, although trending a little bit down. Banners, still really popular, relatively kind of stable. And this is what I would call kind of your tier 1 channels, highly used, and we'll get to effectiveness in a second. And kind of tier 2, you'll see that about 50–60% usage, direct publisher deals, so trading, bartering. That could be any format, just a different type of rather, are you working with paid media and an ad network, or are you brokering your own deals with your fellow competitors, in which sense they would then become your partner. Cross promotion as well. And then you start to see offer walls and free app networks. When I used to be on the buy side running user acquisition 3.5 years ago, and I can attest, these channels were 100% used, they were 100% effective, but the market has clearly changed, and we'll get into a little bit about why that has happened. So offer walls from 100% now to less than 50% just in 18 months. Free app networks, even worse, from almost 100% down to almost only a third of top grossing developers still using free app networks to distribute their app. And lastly, like we said, we've got a few data points on more traditional marketing channels that are being used for user acquisition. So that was usage. What are you using today? Let's shift gears for a second and talk about effectiveness. Which of those channels are really effective at driving your goals, whatever that KPI may be? So first we say video ads. So the blue bar is usage, what we just saw, so 100% usage. And 75% say, so this is five-point scale, asking developers, is this the most effective channel, or is this channel very effective? So combined top 2 response, 75% is pretty solid, saying this is a top channel for all these marketers, and it kind of matches with the usage. But as we go down the chart, Facebook as well, right? Really popular in usage, also really effective for most top user acquisition advertisers. Interstitials, again, a little bit less usage, a little bit of a gap starting to emerge in terms of effectiveness. Are they as effective as some of these other channels? But here's the big one, big insight that we've seen this year, really for the first time, emerge. So banners, still really high usage, great at driving volume and reach, and still an important piece of user acquisition campaigns. They're still used north of 80%, but the effectiveness has fallen, plummeted to less than 25% of people rank them in that top, those top tiers as being effective channels to drive their goals in user acquisition today. Facebook video, so this would be video in the carousel in Facebook. So we broke out Facebook display, so that would be app install ads, versus where you can actually use video in there. Again, really effective and usage. And direct deals following quite right behind. So let's look at the other channels those were kind of the top used channels. Let's look at the other ones. Let's dive a little bit deeper into which channels are trending kind of the other way. So direct deals been kind of flat, just kind of took a turn a little bit down. But we've got things like cross promotion, which we can see has trended down, kind of flattened out, still about 50% of developers using them. But you look at offer walls, again, they've gone from 100% down to less than 50%, and then you've got free app networks by nearly 100% to down to just about a third. And then when you look at the effectiveness of those channels, when you ask about the effectiveness, this chart on the right, again, for some of these, you're starting to see a gap emerge. Yes, usage is down, but also the gap in effectiveness of those channels is also down, which is kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy. If a channel's not effective, less people are going to use it, and it's going to kind of accelerate. So that's kind of channels, that's usage, that's effectiveness, what the top grossing developers are using each day. In terms of KPIs, so we asked developers five questions. Quality of user, so quality could mean something different to every single developer. It could mean session times, it can mean purchases, it can mean retention rates, or some combination of all those things. Price, is price your main metric that you're looking for in driving user acquisition? Targeting, targeting parameters and things like that. Service, managed campaigns and having good service from your partners, something we don't often talk about that we kind of saw last year, and volume, right? So here's quality. Over the last 18 months, we've asked this. Quality has remained basically the top element and KPI that developers are looking to drive. And mind you, we can't really get in the heads of each of these buyers. As I said, quality can mean something different to each of them. But then we look at price. So I think the guys at Fixu put out a mobile user acquisition index or a cost per loyal user index. I think it's around like $1.80 now. But prices have been rising over time, and they tend to spike in Q4. So as the market gets more mature, as there's more dollars, price is becoming an important piece of the decision matrix. Targeting. So I think this basically mirrors when Facebook came online. So with Facebook came to mobile, came a whole lot of whole new targeting options around audiences, segments, behaviors, all sorts of things. So we're starting to hear all these guys talk about making sure you're reaching the right user with your user acquisition campaign. You're not just, popular term was kind of spray and pray. Test all channels, let users tell you what they like. Next, we've got service. So again, we're seeing as more channels emerge, they're getting more complex. That service at the local channels is becoming really important to help developers get the most out of each of those channels and drive results for their campaigns. And here's the big one. Here's volume. So volume at the top left, the red line, was the #1 most important factor in determining campaign success for user acquisition buyers just 18 months ago. Today, it's last when you ask them to rank these 5 things. Moving on to pricing. When you move to pricing, most all user acquisition has been bought on CPI from the very beginning, from offer walls, from video, from things like that. Cost per completed view, CPCV, was really a new pricing model a couple years ago that emerged with regards to video, although some videos also sold on CPI. CPC, CPA, CPM, again, CPM, this is way up from what CPM used to be. So it's, focusing, it's easy to go out and minimize risk and buy on CPI, but these big developers are finding other channels where they can buy impressions. They value those impressions, and they know they drive efficiencies across the rest of their buys that maybe they're buying on CPI. So let's look at 2014. So we look at this year and we ask developers to rank a whole list of 20 different behaviors and actions that they've taken over the year. So starting with, we asked developers, have you increased the size of your budgets? And mind you, these are the top 100 grossing developers. So the guys with the deep pockets, the guys with the highly monetizing apps. And again, 85% or so have said that they continue to increase the size of their campaigns. So, for the ND developers out there, I think that means the importance of publishing today, just as Walter talked about. But because the big guys are being more and more competitive, more and more aggressive, and spending larger budgets. But the green line here is campaign reach on a global basis. So a lot of that increased spend is the big top grossing developers buying more countries. So as it's become so competitive in the US, the UK, Australia, Canada, what we call kind of the big 4 English-speaking countries, we have developers who run across 200 markets with localized creative in video, in banners. So increasing reach is really what's driving a lot of those dollars as game developers think more globally in their distribution. Next, you've got new channels. So this yellow line, testing new channels, still a big appetite to test new channels. I think that's what is exciting, is there's new formats, new ad formats, new channels, new partners emerging every single day, and it's important to test. We are seeing more and more, as we saw, budgets shift to video. The red dot on the right, we asked a new question this year. Are your budgets being focused more with select partners? So is there consolidation in the space? And there we've seen, so we are seeing a little bit of consolidation on the spend side as well. Being more focused on CPI in a market of rising prices, as well as, there are developers who are shifting more of those budgets to Android as well. On the flip side of the coin, we're seeing, developers have shifted a lot to social, so still shifting a lot to social, but I think with Twitter moving into the game, there's a lot more social channels that'll be available as well. Shifting to offer walls, so you're starting to see kind of attitudes trend away from offer walls, just as we saw usage and effectiveness. Again, with direct deals, with interstitials, and then you really get down to the bottom. Free app networks, display, and banners that they have budgets. They're not getting more budgets. Oftentimes we see on the publishing side, those same publishers are trading that banner to put video in there or to put a different ad format. So some of that inventory is actually drying up. So lastly, we asked the developers about 2015. What's going to change next year? What are you thinking into the future? And I know it's a long ways to think out in mobile. Nobody knows. Most guys don't even know what app they're launching or anything. 6-7 months out. But here's kind of the tier one, which pretty much matches what we shared last year. And this is ranked top to bottom. So budgets are getting bigger. They're becoming more global. There's still a willingness to test a lot of new channels. And you'll see kind of video and social are the two biggest categories that are winning in this space at providing kind of results. Kind of flat in the middle. I think the market's really matured between iOS and Android. There's no real shift of dollars between kind of the two platforms. We even ask a question about Windows. And then at the bottom, similar things we saw that, people strongly disagreeing that they expect any of those trends with offer walls, with free app networks to turn around next year and to spend significant budgets there. So last slide I'll leave you guys with. This is one question. We'll only get one response. We ask everyone, what is the one most, if you had to pick one, and we have partners who work with north of 100 networks and channels and formats and manage them every day with user acquisition teams that are 10, 15, 20 people sometimes. And we ask them, what is the one channel? If you had to put all your money into one channel next year, what would it be? What are you most excited about? So video and social, I think the message here is kind of pretty clear at the top with almost 85% of all responses. Although you do see, there is someone who said, I'm really excited about offer walls next year. I'm really excited about free app networks. We probably haven't sat down and shared with them the results of the rest of the survey. But again, it's a really exciting space, and I think given the willingness, there's always new channels, there's always new partners out there, and I'll leave it at that. We're happy to sit down and talk with any developer, help you kind of benchmark your strategies, share best practices and insights, for both indie developers, for large developers, because this space is evolving every single day, and I think it's super exciting, but it can be a bit daunting as a new developer when you're looking at the user acquisition space. So thank you. We'll leave it there, and maybe have time for one or two questions.
Any questions in the room?
When you were talking about banners, are they static banners that you were referring to?
Yeah, so banners in
Okay.
here, it could include different types of placement. It could be native, it could be, more kind of standard banners, but traditionally it's more standard, and that's what that question has been asked. I think if you dig into banners, you're going to see that native is growing pretty rapidly and in there as well, so definitely setting more of those kind of traditional static banners. And the same with rich media. Things like iAd, more rich media banners that are offsetting some of the declines in the more kind of static placements of, say, 2-3 years ago that dominated. Yeah.
In that 10% other category that you showed at the end, what are you seeing coming up as those other forms? Like video is really 2 years old. We were excited about banner and interstitial a few years ago.
Yeah.
Who knows if we'll still be into video 2 years from now? What's next?
Yeah, so the question, what's in that other category? I think even the last couple of times we've run the survey, it's gotten a big goose egg that developers had said, everything's classified here where we spend money. So the fact that there are a few developers saying we are interested in what the other channels and partners, I think, word of mouth is always the number one, way to discover apps. And I think, if I were thinking of new ideas and I think, anyone who solves or things, social is a great example that helps drive word of mouth. But there's all sorts of other ways. I mean, discovery is a big challenge given, Walter talked about 2.5 million apps on the stores. as a new app, how do you stand out? How do you influence these things? I think it's more traditional marketing channels that app marketers and performance marketers are starting to think about. So things like television, it's pretty scary because it's expensive and you can't track the download directly from it. But if you're tracking every other piece of all your campaigns, you can pretty much attribute the impact of that TV buy across your portfolio of all your campaigns. So I think there's new channels emerging all the time, so it's hard to say which one's going to win.
Hi, you
Yeah.
talked about the growing importance of targeting. Can you say a little bit more about, is it demographic, is it interest? What do you mean?
Yeah, so at AdColony, we work on the brand side as well. So we pull in all sorts of data about audience segments, behavioral, whether that's data logics, thousands of different segments about consumer interest, behaviors, all sorts of things. So targeting is a broad category. It's something we haven't really talked about in performance marketing beyond just demographics, making sure you're reaching the right core user for your app. But as you're looking to reach the right user, is going to be a high value user. Targeting is something really to explore. Who are the right partners? Who has the targeting? So you don't have to run a massive campaign to figure out what's going to work. You can start a little bit more targeted and figure out what's going to work from the get-go.
Great. I think we have time for one more quick question in the back.
One more?
You mentioned your survey was focusing on the top spenders. So how do you think the survey would be different if you looked at people who spent under $100,000, say, a month?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. Thanks, Rob. In terms of other smaller developers, I think from the beginning, if you're trying to do this yourself, you're probably more focused about cost. You're trying to make sure that your marketing dollar is going to go as far as possible. So I think things like video, things like social, they have gotten expensive because they are driving results for the big players. So you might have to think a little bit more strategically and think, are there things, offer walls, banners, some of these other categories that the big guys are using, but maybe they move beyond. Maybe they're not paying enough attention there if your sole thing is based on price. But it really speaks to, working with a partner who understands the space, whether that's publishing, whether it's, trusted kind of ad networks to understand what's the right channel that's going to be right to help distribute your app and take it to the top of the charts. So
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you so much.